So part of October is National Coming Out Month, or Coming Out Day, so we've been sharing our coming out stories. So Ace and I have already shared ours, but we'll have you, if you're comfortable, like share yours. If you don't feel comfortable sharing that, we will. So either way, you're going to be uncomfortable.
What?
Okay. How's this?
Can you turn the volume up on your?
No, because it just pulls in the camera. Like we would have to have, like we've done in the past, like something that encloses around it. But we don't have that right now.
Why not?
Because we don't have a big umbrella, I guess, to like hang right here. Yeah.
We also still have that mic that
Where is it?
can connect to the iPad, but then your iPad can't be charging, so it's.
Well, it's at 70%.
Okay,
so make it hard.
Yeah. It's not even plugged in, by the way. It's just sitting right here. I was like, if there's there's no extension cord. So.
Perfect.
And then I guess it'll be nice to have Tony listening so we can see.
Oh, if this works or not?
If it sounds good, we can adjust the gains and stuff.
Yeah. Games. I could be very pro. That wasn't bro, yeah.
That was really creepy.
You see, I like how they were off by one day on our weather report. Today was supposed to be yesterday, which is why we didn't.
Yesterday rained.
Oh, it did? Okay, it did not rain at all at our house. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it rained actually a fair amount down at our place. Where do you live? 73rd Virginia. I don't know where that is, but that sounds fun. 73rd Street. I don't know how to. Other side of the church.
Red line.
Yeah. Marlboro. What's the cigarette? Yep. There's an old abandoned school down there called the Marlboro School. We can go in that. There's a sweater. There's a hot dog. We should go. Today's the perfect day. And also have to cancel my appointments.
Okay.
Tony, we're setting up new audio, so we'll see how this works.
Is that your new name? It's a meltdown.
Meltdown.
Oh no. What happened?
It's a different.
Oh yeah, it's a USB-C.
Yeah.
At home.
What's a USB-C?
We need a different dongle.
Hey, dongle. I think it's at home. I don't think I put it in my bag yet.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm using it at home on my projector. Yeah, it's at home. We're just gonna have to talk loud, guys. I wonder if there's a way to turn an AirPod into a mic. Well, yeah, I can.
I'll just squeeze your balls every time I push it out there.
What did I do?
Oh my god, you broke it.
How did I do that?
Oh, we need it closer.
Yeah, because I had the camera zoomed in.
Oh, why? Big ass. Yeah. My big ass.
Apple
assuming.
Yeah.
Lightning, clean Z, whatever.
That's what someone's.
Announce messages, not now. Siri, we don't need that. So those are linked. Camera's back.
Okay, so if I just like put them over.
I know, I was like, if they just sit here.
Are these the same? Do you have the same iPad?
I don't know.
Because you use mine. If that other thing will connect.
No, I think no, it's the same. Well, will you ask Tony how? Tony, are you?
Tony, can you hear us? We just changed the audio. Let us know how that sounds.
Hello, hello. Hi. Hi, can you hear us? Welcome to my TikTok. I think you're on mute. Dun, dun, dun. You can barely hear us? Really? What?
It was better the other way.
Okay, I'll just put them away and then
It'll
stop this
automatic.
thing.
Yeah, what would you like me to talk about? I'm gonna try to pull this up on my I don't know how to use this. I guess if you have Facebook, where's my Facebook?
That's what I do every time I open mine. Where's my stuff at? I just gotta search for it.
Because I only use this to like do emails and I guess it would be like in this.
Yeah. Oh, you don't have the app?
I know, right? That would make more sense.
Ew, what's an app?
That's what I was looking for. So I can barely hear you, Tony. Louder? What? This isn't working.
No, I get this.
Okay. What can... Is that better? No. Do you need more, what are those called? Stools? Tables?
It's not that it wrap around it. You know the funnels that sound to it?
Hold on, I might have a solution. I might be able to find some condoms, but, sorry about wrapping around it. Hold on. How long is this? Will this fit like this? You set this in here? It's wide enough. Is it not wide?
Oh. Wait. Can't see the camera, but Tony. I don't know if it'll capture the sound though.
Wait, long ways?
Yeah.
Would that work maybe?
Yeah. Ooh.
Hope it works. Nope. Take the box out.
You put the box right
Here.
Yep, super juicy. Tony, how's that?
How's it sound?
Yeah, can you hear me?
What?
Sit down.
Can you hear us? Does that make the sound a little better?
Barely. I'll try to boost it.
Can you see us okay? Is it centered? What? It's a little crooked. Hold on a second.
How's that?
What about?
It's so much fun.
It's gonna slide the whole entire time.
I know.
What about the
What?
doing? box of gloves over there underneath the drafts. Is that box too big?
How does that look right now?
You still can't hear us very well?
Okay.
Okay.
Casey, you try it. Just say your name and your title.
My name is Casey Russo, and I'm a behavioral intervention specialist. That's me at regular volume. I can.
Yeah, up it.
Okay. I like my body when it is with your body. It's so quite new a thing. Muscles better, nerves more. I like your body. I like what it does. I like its howls.
Yeah.
I like your body. I like that. Was this a poem?
I like your body.
I've never heard that before.
It's gotta talk a little bit louder.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, I'm like, I do not know a single poem by him. It's just
Poem?
like, poem.
Poem.
No, it's like trying to spell the word "the" after a few times. You're like, I don't know if I spelled this right. And now I'm googling it, trying to figure out: is it THE? Is it TH? What is it?
You're Googling. Where? I guess I just go to the wall. I don't know how this works. Oh, I'm searching for Unboxed.
Oh, is that? It's maybe like. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
No, this isn't what I'm trying to get to. What is this? Oh, look, are we already live?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, we've been live for like 12, 13 minutes. Well, fuck.
That's how it works when we're live.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought we were just still setting up, but this works for me, and I need to share this. Share, bitches. Share now to your story, to public. Yeah. I guess it's on my timeline. We'll see how this works. Cute.
Yeah. Okay.
Ta-da! For my next trick.
Comments on. Yeah, comments on. Okay.
I thought you said hummus.
Chris tried to make me eat hummus last night on my salad.
Make you? First of all, hummus is delicious.
It is. But I didn't want it on my salad last night. I wanted like blue cheese and ranch.
Oh.
Yeah. So my diet's going great. I'm almost through my bottle of ranch. One salad. Don't worry, it's really good ranch. Since we've already been on air for a little bit, we'll do introductions, and then we'll get into our games that we have. We have a sexual health dice game, and then a know your history over HIV and race. So we can play one or the other or both. We'll play both. Get to touch on both topics. It's really important. I'm Wes with KC Care. And
I'm Ace from What is KC?
I'm Casey with Casey Care.
Yay! Casey with
Care.
Casey Care. So much Casey. I wish it was Casey's gas station because I love their pizza. No?
What is it, like Hunt's Brothers? Is that the Hunt's Brothers?
That's
the brand?
Pizza. I don't know.
It's
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love their pizza and I love their breakfast pizza the most.
I worked at a gas station, and that was one of my jobs was to like make the pizzas. And it's the same Casey's like Hunt's Brother pizza.
What gas station did you work at?
This was in Cookson, Oklahoma, off Lake Painkiller. I can't tell you what the name of the gas station is.
You were a pizza maker at a gas station.
Yeah, and I cleaned cabins.
I feel like that's a whole story that I want to unbox at some point. Yeah, my mind's going.
And I cleaned cabins, yeah.
That
was
literally sounds like at a lake. That sounds like a porno. I'm just a pizza boy at the lake gas station. How do you like your toppings?
I did have those questions.
I'd watch it. Yes. Add to cart.
Add to cart. Can I get extra toppings?
Oh, I have the whole crew there.
You can add as many as you want. There's no fee. Ooh, wild card. Casey, if you would pick a number between 1 and 5.
3.
Oh, fun. Top, bottom, or verse? How do you identify?
First.
Verse. I think we've answered this question a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been so long since I've had any kind of sexual relations, since I've started my hiatus of know everything, but I kind of forgot.
If you're a top, bottom, or verse. So maybe that is you started as a verse.
I guess it'd be like right, left, or fuck machine. That should be my like.
Oh, check, and check. Oh, yeah. I like your selections there, Ace. And which ones you would pick.
Same. So much same.
All right, so on our race deck, we have 1, which is know your history. 2 is a reflection. And I thought we were out of 3. And 3 is an ask, so it's an action card. So pick a number between 1, 2, and 3.
2.
Nice. We're almost out of 3s. You know, history is not everybody's subject that they like to discuss. If you'll take 1. So this is a reflection card. So it gives, this one's a definition, and then you can reflect on what it means for you individually. So we're talking about intersectionality, so intersectional identity. So intersectionality describes the way in which people's different identities, i.e. gender, class, or race, all inform their life experiences and cannot be isolated from one another. People's unique, multiple identities produce distinctive life experiences. So what does intersectionality mean for you? Like, how do you define yourself under that, guys? Gender, class, race, to inform your life experiences.
Well, that's a really loaded question.
Yeah.
It's like intense.
Yeah.
For like 8 o'clock in the morning. Fuck, it's noon.
I would have to say, I was brought up in a very community-driven household. I was Mennonite on one side of the family, Italian on the other. So family and community played a very big part in my upbringing. So today, that is still really true. If I have downtime, I'm usually spending it with somebody else. And the people that I do spend time with are very close to me.
So you bridge that gap by making sure you bring people in and that your identity is sort of meld with other people's, or those you keep close to you.
Yeah.
Ace, what about yourself?
What was the question?
So it's intersectionality. So it describes the way in which people's different identities inform their life experiences. So it may be gender, class, or race. So for him, like his upbringing like helps define who he is moving forward. So for yourself, how does intersectionality define who you are?
I don't feel like I still understand how this works. But yeah.
Well, for like gender, class, race,
all those mix of things in myself, how do they make me work?
No, the intersectionality of those combine to create your life experience.
I feel like that's such a complex question. I feel like it changes all the time. I feel like I think that like as humans, like we should strive or do to be like the best version of ourselves all the time. And I think that changes. And I think that sometimes the best version of yourself may not be a better version, but just a different version. And I think that happens through experiences. It also happens through age. I think it happens through, like family, community, all those things. I don't know. I think I just kind of pull from like wherever I'm at the moment and just try to figure out how to be the best version of myself at that moment and in that space. But I don't know. And I've also like traveled so much and lived in so many different cities and met so many different people. Like now sometimes it's a little jumbled because I feel like we've met multiple times and I feel like I do remember you from Starbucks, but also like in my head I'm just like, was that a Starbucks or was that a different store? And was it in the city or like was it in another city? But I feel like there's some kind of like,
I know you.
I'm connected with you at some point in some way, whether it just be like verbally or physically or visually or whatever. And then also with like social media, it's like, are you somebody that I've chatted with on Instagram or Grindr? Like, what's going on? Here? Who, like, how does this transpire?
What was our conversation?
And also, like, how should I act? Should I, you know, like, hello, and pretend that I still remember you? Or should I be like, I'm so sorry, what was your name again? Or they'll be like, actually, yeah, like, you don't know my name at all, so then I feel like even worse. I don't know. Yes, I don't know. I think that everything that you do just kind of, all the intersectionalities, sectionality, all of it.
All that's part of it.
Yeah, I think it just comes from whatever time and moment that you're in. And I think that you should pull from that, just to try to strive to be a better version of who you are today, yesterday, tomorrow, whatever.
No, I agree completely. That's how I see intersectionality too. It's like you strive to be the best version of yourself as you can be given the moment that you're in. So like I was raised Pentecostal. I would not be the best version of myself if I adhered to how I was raised. That's for sure.
I don't think anyone does. That's not a cut away.
Yeah, but they're not watching. It's fine.
That's not a best version of me. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Pentecostals can't do this anyway, so it's fine. So moving on. So we're talking today about addiction and what that looks like. And we have Casey here joining us to sort of be like our knowledge bank or someone who has experienced this and is comfortable sharing, you know, with our viewers and talking about what addiction looks like for individuals and for himself as well. So while
also real quick though, you just stated that you're from Casey Care Clinic. What do you do at Casey Care Clinic? What's your title there?
My title is Behavioral Intervention Specialist. So I do HIV prevention and outreach and testing.
Nice. So as part of your behavioral intervention, does that mean like you have counseling sessions with clients, or like how do you interject a behavioral intervention part? Like how does that come into play?
I honestly haven't been trained on that yet, so we're waiting for that to come around.
Yeah, so you get to. Yeah.
So I get to eventually. Before that, I was a drug and alcohol counselor for several years.
Oh, nice. Where were you a drug and alcohol counselor?
A recovery house called Welcome House.
Yeah.
It's here, local here in town. 12-step based recovery house. It's where I went to get in recovery. So had a lot of involvement with it over the past 6 years.
So let's, I think, you know, from an outsider perspective, that sounds like an incredible chain of events, or, you know, how you come from a space of addiction, you go into a rehab facility, but you also end up full circle is like working at that rehab facility, helping others. So what was that process like for you? Like that transition, that period in there?
Well, it's traditional in that house to staff most of the positions by residents. Like the front desk is staffed by current residents as part of a rehabilitative jobs program.
Oh, cool.
And that's where I started. And after a while, they decided that they were going to send me to a peer training program where I became a peer educator for drugs and alcohol.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they have the same thing for individuals who are living with HIV can do a peer-to-peer program, so they can be matched with somebody that sort of mirrors them, whether, you know, it's gender or race or something along those lines.
Yeah, and I got that one too, actually.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, I'm all about the peer-to-peer model. I think that it is unparalleled when it comes to most recovery circumstances, whether it be HIV or drug and alcohol recovery. You know, the 12-step programs, which started back in the 30s, is a peer-to-peer model. You know, it is other alcoholics and other people with substance abuse disorders that are helping other people with substance abuse disorders. You know, you will usually get a sponsor, which is kind of your mentor. They're the ones that walk you through the process of recovery and walk you through the what's known as the 12 steps. 12 steps are a suggested recovery program in the 12-step fellowships. And it helps helps you be able to get some hope that there is help available, and helps you sort through a lot of the mess that's usually made through active addiction, and then helps identify your emotions and your feelings and your behaviors and patterns, and how to counter those so that you can be the best version of you.
Nice.
And then a amends process is made, and for internal healing, and then it's maintenance from there.
Yeah. What like, so you said it was 6 years ago that you started working, or that you went into rehab there?
Yeah.
What was your addiction like before you went into rehab? Sort of like leading up to that, like building up to that point where you made that decision to do that. Like, what was that like before? You know, for those individuals out there who maybe are in that same spot right now, but they're not sure if this is like, should I go to rehab or everything's fine? Like, what does that look like? You know, what did it look like for you for those individuals to build those parallels for themselves?
So my addiction was very chaotic. You know, I started with drinking and smoking a lot of pot, and you know, lost jobs because of it, and you know, it was very much a gateway drug for me, or both of them were gateway drugs for me. It lowered my inhibitions to be able to try other drugs like methamphetamines. When I discovered methamphetamines, I was hooked, and like that's when my already spiraling life like really circled the drain. Got into a series of abusive relationships where they basically just kept feeding me drugs.
Wow.
You know, I was living in my car with 2 other guys at one point.
So you were all living in your car?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds horrible.
Imagine how much shit 3 homosexuals can pack into a vehicle.
Wow. Do you need that? Oh my gosh. How long did you guys live in your car?
That lasted about 3 weeks before they took off with my car.
Oh my gosh, that's even worse.
You know,
Like they
and that
took off in your
started-
car, like they left and they're like, the car is fine.
Yeah, they dropped me off at someone's house so they could make a deal, and the deal went south, and so they were too ashamed to come back, so they just took off. So a lot more common in that scene than people care to admit.
No, I've had that happen to friends. Yeah.
But that started another chain of events of like, you know, I was very new to the scene. I was kind of thrown into it, and you know, those guys were basically taking care of me because I didn't know how to really survive on the street. And then somebody else took ownership because they took off with their money and they saw me as their property.
Oh wow.
And so that started another chain of events that was difficult to get out of.
So when you say ownership, do you mean like what do you mean by that?
He referred to me as like literally as his property. And because I still didn't really know how to survive, he was the one that was teaching me how to survive.
So you were reliant on this
So I
person
was
too.
relying on this person then.
Yeah.
And then that, you know, I got traded another couple of times or so. And then at one point, one of my dealers that I lived in the car with that I really admired disappeared for like a month and a half. And he calls me one day out of the blue. I was at a Trick's house, and he was like, "Hey, I went to rehab. I want you to go to a meeting with me."
Wow.
He's like, "I want to see you, but I can only see you if I take you to a meeting."
Yeah.
So I agreed to go to this meeting with him. I had no idea what I was like, what it was, or you know what it was about.
Why did you agree to go to this meeting?
I wanted to see him.
Okay.
You know, that was really my only intention was I wanted to see him. I don't really remember much from that meeting. I remember what meeting it was. You know, it was an NA meeting. He primarily identified with NA. About a month later, he got me into the same treatment program he was going through. And I wish I could say that was the last time I used, but I had a difficult time letting go of my old friends that used because they were really my only support at the time.
Yeah. So I think that's important to touch on for individuals who are coming out of rehab or thinking about rehab, that or maybe you have, a family member who's gone through that or a friend, like relapse is part of recovery. I mean, that's, I've heard that in my work, working with clients, is like to expect individuals to relapse and to be there for them when they do, and to not shame them for that moment, but to just talk about, okay, let's learn from this, let's get you back into rehab, let's talk more about what your next steps are. So what was that like for you to have those moments where you relapsed?
Well, I kind of went back and forth for a couple of months between trying to stay clean and going back out. I tried going to meetings. I didn't necessarily interact with people. I didn't know how to interact with people. My social skills were very limited at the time. But I still went to these meetings, and then I would end up hanging out with my using friends afterwards, and one thing would lead to another, and I'd be up all night again. I could put together maybe 2-3 weeks at the most, and then there was traumatizing experience, which caused me to go back to that environment. I go back to that place, and they're like, "You're just going to live here with us. You can't live on your own right now. We're not going to let you."
And that was at the rehab facility, or
it was one of the trap houses.
Okay.
They were concerned about my mental health. They're like, "You need to be around people." So they kind of took me in, and I stayed out for about a year before I tried to get clean again. I remember before I tried to get clean, I was like, I don't want to get clean because I don't want to be alone, because that was my experience with recovery.
Wow.
And it took me about 3 months of trying, going in and out of treatment centers. I walked out of 2 treatment centers, walked out of detox a few times, kept going back to my abusive ex, who would give me drugs all the time, and so finally somebody picked me up and took me to the place I got clean at, and it was like, this is kind of your last stop. And the people there were very welcoming, and I was like, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do this.
Well, you were able to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're here now. How long were you in their program?
Well, I lived there a little longer than a lot of people did. It's a 9-month program now, but at the time there was no time limit. So I was there for almost 2 years. But I was also an administrator there, and I couldn't leave and keep my job, so I was kind of tied.
Yeah.
A little longer than I wanted to be. But yeah, they said go to meetings, so I started going to meetings, and I'll never forget this one person at my first meeting back, came up and gave me a really big hug and said, "Hey, welcome. There's a meeting here tomorrow. You want to come?" I was like, "Yeah." And every day she kept saying, "There's a meeting here. Come tomorrow." And every day she was there, and she would give me a big hug, and that made me feel more included in the program. That connection. I'm a firm believer in the power of community. The 12-step programs are focused a lot on the sense of community. It's like I said, it's one addict or alcoholic helping another, and we all pull strength from each other. That's why the support groups are great, because there are support groups. We support one another. We build each other up. We talk to people. We talk to each other after the meetings. We talk to each other before the meetings. We form relationships and bonds, and and having that sense of community kept me around. Because all of a sudden I wasn't alone. And it's,
Made new friends, a new family.
Yeah.
Yeah, a new way to engage and sort of see that there is something on the other side.
Yeah.
There's we have a question from Eli, and he asks, "What's your advice for a person who relapses over and over and over again?"
Keep trying. I mean, it would definitely be the first thing. You know, there should be no shame in relapse. You know, I didn't go back because I was ashamed of what people would say and what people would think of me because, you know, because I was still using, you know, and I couldn't stay clean. But you know, especially from working in this recovery house that I worked at, you know, I've seen a lot of people come back, and I've seen a lot of people come back to meetings. You know, they would leave, relapse, and I'd see them at meetings. You know, picking yourself back up and continuing to do whatever it was that may have worked for you in the past. Maybe you've gotten a few days, maybe you've gotten a few months, maybe you had a few years. You know, whatever it is that worked for you then can work. You know, should be able to work for you now. You know,
When you relapsed those multiple times, were you still engaging with the same rehab facility, or were you trying on different places, different support groups? Like, was it always going back to the same space, or was it different for you?
I tried different places. Like my first experience this go around with a rehab was out in Virginia. My parents flew out and picked me up and flew me back. That's where I'm from. And they put me in a rehab out there, and I couldn't handle it. It was very militant, and and a little homophobic. So I felt very uncomfortable there. So I walked out of there and got on the bus and came back here.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to go to the same treatment center I went to last time. And I knew they had a lot of resources that could help me find housing, a lot of resources that could help me get into behavioral health and different things like that. So I got into that rehab, and I ended up walking out after a week. You know, it was, you know, but even though I would go back, you know, go back to using, go back to drinking. You know, after about a week or so, I would pick myself back up and leave my situation and try something else.
So you found one that works for you.
I found one that works for me.
Yeah.
Not everybody's recovery is going to look the same.
Just like there are different places where you can access recovery, so they're not all going to be like someone who may thrive in a militant type situation where they're very controlled and sort of establishes that order, and for other individuals, it's just not the space for them to grow and thrive.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I needed structure. I definitely needed structure. But at the same time, I needed some freedoms. You know, so this place allowed they would kick me out every day at 9 to go out and look for work. You know, I wasn't allowed to come back until a certain time.
Yeah.
You know, and when I did find work, you know, I felt good being able to pay my rent and, you know, get a phone and you know, different things like that. You know, it was very empowering for me because I hadn't worked in years. You know.
Yeah.
So
you were just making it.
I was just making it. You know, but I found something that worked for me. And you know, I'll be the first to say that you know, 12-step programs aren't the only programs out there. They're the most readily available, but because they've been around forever. But there are other programs out there. Some people don't like or don't agree with the 12-step principles. You know, a lot of it is higher power based. They're considered a spiritual program, and some people don't identify with that. And there are other programs out there, like Smart Recovery.
You said, what'd you say? What's it called?
Smart Recovery. You know, that is that's a science-based program that is based around cognitive behavioral therapy. You have to be licensed to be able to facilitate those classes, or certified to be able to facilitate those classes. And it goes through a lot of the same 12-step programs do about changing behaviors and patterns, but they do it in a different approach.
That's interesting. I've never heard. I've as far as like recovery programs and stuff, I just figured that they were all faith-based, 12-step, and you would still do the 12-step, but you just didn't have the faith as like part of it, depending on where you went.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the 12-step programs are very spiritual based. I personally identify as an agnostic / atheist. I kind of go back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
So when it came to the steps that involved God, finding the higher power of my understanding, I had to find something that worked for me. For me, that was I could see the program itself working for other people.
Okay.
So that became a power that was greater than myself that could help restore me back to sanity. I could at least believe in the principles that it taught. And that's still kind of what I adhere to today.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about prayer and meditation in one of the steps, and my philosophy is, this program is my power that's greater than myself. If I want to start praying, I better start calling people.
Like leaning on your support system, and
leaning on my support system, and going to meetings and honestly sharing about what's going on, and being open and forthright with everything that's might be happening or might not be happening.
So it's been, you said, 6 years since you started a recovery program. So are you still, is it something that you stay engaged with as you move on, or do you sort of like stop going to recovery and support meetings, or how does that look? It's, I imagine different for each person?
It's different for each person. Like I said earlier, recovery is different for each person. So, I have friends that have stopped using hard drugs, but they still drink.
Okay.
They can manage that. I still consider those people to be in recovery. But even though they aren't working in an abstinence program like a 12-step program.
Okay.
I still go to meetings because sometimes I need that form, I need that outlet. I'm a very big supporter of like talk therapy, and that's one form of talk therapy for me. Being able to voice what might be happening in my life, or being there to support somebody else who is going through something.
And that's a great space, I imagine, where you can share, and there's no feelings of shame or judgment that come with a story that you're sharing or an experience or.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
I'm sorry, do you have any questions?
No, I'm just listening to your story. It's interesting.
Well, one of the other topics that I was like, what made me think of that when I asked you this was October is also like coming out month. We're talking about our coming out stories. So when we do that, like we're thinking, in that premise, we're focused on the LGBT plus side of that conversation, like, for it's coming out. But I would think when you're dealing with addiction and recovery, that's also a coming out story. And like sharing that, with other individuals. So if you could tell a little bit about your coming out story, and then sort of touch on what that looks like for somebody talking about addiction and recovery as part of that coming out as well.
Yeah, so for me, it took a little while to understand and kind of come to terms with the fact that there may have been a problem. Like as I integrated into that culture, it became less and less of a problem. It was just life at that point. So it wasn't until my old dealer pointed out that, hey,
had a drug problem.
Yes.
And this is a person that you would be buying the drugs from.
That's the
right?
person that's benefiting from you
Yeah.
having an issue, and they're telling you that you have an issue. I feel like that's a very big universe sign, being like,
Whoa.
Molly, you in danger.
Right?
Oh.
Your dealer's like, I'm gonna, instead of selling you, I'm just gonna take you to a recovery place. Like, I feel like we need to talk
I
about
think
this.
that we've reached our limit. You can't add anything else to the cart.
Right?
This is just getting a little bad. Yeah. Which are things that you don't expect to hear from a dealer.
Not at all. That's wild.
Yeah. Interesting. So, yeah. I'm sorry. Keep going.
I was gonna say that after I got into rehab, that's when I started contacting people that I kind of shut out for that, right? Like when I started using meth heavily, I stopped talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
If they weren't inside that little circle, I didn't talk to them. I didn't want anything to do with them. I didn't associate with them. I didn't want the judgment. I didn't want them saying, "Hey, what you're doing is wrong," because I didn't believe what I was doing was wrong. So I cut everybody out in my family, the people that knew me before I started using heavy drugs,
Wow.
like everybody. So when I went to rehab the first time, I kind of blew the hinges off of those doors, those closet doors. And I posted all over Facebook that I was in rehab, and it kind of let everybody know.
Yeah.
Um,
And did you have, was like, the results what you expected? Like a lot of support, or?
there was a lot of support until I went back out for another year, and that support stopped. And after that, nobody wanted really anything to do with me. When I got clean this time, I told my family. My family was aware that I was trying to get clean, and they came out and flew me back to Virginia to help me try to get clean. But I didn't really tell many other people. I didn't have many other people to tell at that point. I went through my Facebook and deleted all of the friends that I used with, and it went from like a page of like 200 to like 35. And those were all family members, pretty much.
Yes.
So I didn't really post too much about recovery. Every once in a while I just posted an enlightenment thought that I would have. But yeah, I didn't really have many people to tell. My support system were the people in that house and the people in the meetings that I was going to do. That was kind of refreshing.
That is. I can see how that, you wouldn't share so openly the second time around, or something along those lines, like that. It sort of refocuses you on like it's more important to yourself and building yourself up, and not about sharing and telling everybody and something along those lines.
Yeah, like a lot of people when they come into recovery, they come in with a lot of regret, a lot of guilt and shame about a lot of things that they do or have done. So their first impulse is to, when they get into recovery, a lot of times is to try to make amends right away.
Mm-hmm.
In the 12-step program, the amends process is later on in the steps. Like you'll be in the program for a little while before you get to that process, so that you can kind of work on yourself and not have it be just kind of a dry "I'm sorry."
Yeah, it gives you sort of levels you out in a way.
Yeah. So it's really about working on yourself and trying to just trying to have hope that you can get through this. Those first few months, and especially the first several steps, are very intimidating and can be difficult at times.
So when it comes to dealing with recovery and the addiction that's part of that, like wanting to use or being addicted to a drug or needing a drug to cover up an emotional response or something like that, how do you manage that in your daily life? Like I think of, you know, like when I stopped smoking, you know, I'm like, I just stopped smoking, and that was it. And so I'm like, for other individuals, like the addiction is definitely harder and more ingrained. So like, how do you fight that? Because I think of like when I smell a cigarette or something, like sometimes like if it's a clove, I'm like, ooh, but I'm like, no, it's good, I'm fine, I don't need that.
So regardless of what recovery program you choose, they're all about changing your behaviors and your patterns. You know, developing better coping mechanisms, and different points like that. So, and like I said, that's regardless of what recovery program you choose, whether that be 12-step or Smart Recovery or Passages Malibu. That it's all about changing your life and the way that you perceive your life and the world around you. You know, the 12 steps are just one of many ways to do that. I always tell my clients the 12 steps don't keep you clean. Living a new life keeps you clean. 12 steps are just one of many ways to learn to live a new life.
So Ace, you're on, how many days are you now where you haven't had alcohol?
Or cigarettes.
Or cigarettes? Oh, yeah,
engaged
that's
in any
right.
sexual activity with another human. With
I forgot
anyone
about
besides myself, because I don't want to make it sound like a fucking sheep or anything. That's creepy. I'm on day 38.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Oh yeah, like that's such a weird thing to say. I mean, to me, I don't know, because I just like I just decided I don't want to do this, and so I don't. It's not like a constant like, oh my god, thinking about it or wanting it or craving. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my sister, who is 5 years older than me, my half sister, who I casually grew up with in like my I think like late teens and stuff, or my early teens. She struggled with addiction her whole life and has been in and out of rehab. And a lot of her behavior not only tore our family apart, but it also tore apart her family when she had children, and continues to this day. Because I mean, her kids are taken away by the state. They were put in with, you know, her baby daddy's family, which, you know, they had never known before. And, you know, it's just a whole myriad of things transpired because of her addiction. And it's difficult for me to be in these conversations because I have my own experience and opinions on addiction and recovery. Also growing up in a very religious family, like I have my own experiences with religion, and most of my experience with religion, like I said earlier, there are different forms of rehab, but the most common ones are faith-based and things like that, mostly because those are the ones that are free, and the other ones usually cost more money. And most people that are in a state of addiction, they obviously have no money, and the people that are around them are sick and tired of bailing them out and giving their life savings for somebody that's just going to relapse in a month or a year, hardcore, and not really take things seriously. And I mean, that was partially like my family experience as well, where my sister did that. And just took money until finally my family, you know, was broke, or you know, and then she still didn't care. And I saw how much I understand, I think, a little bit of the addiction on one level. On the other level, like, we're not the same people, but grew up in similar environments and have the same DNA genetics. I don't know, especially with me doing the things that I do, I think that my belief is a lot of it's choice, you know, and nobody can make you do something you're not ready for and you don't want to do, whether it takes a few attempts or whatever. I don't know. It's difficult for me to have these conversations. And I know that everybody's different. I know that everybody's recovery is different, but I just also have it's like a little bit of a trigger for me to have these conversations, because it just makes me think back onto like my family's issues and like what happened, and you know, decisions that someone else made, when some of it, in my opinion, it's like you literally had a choice to choose your family and people that love you and care about your teeth and your hair and your skin and your future and your own children, and you choose not to. And it's not that they didn't even have the tools. And a part of me is like, it makes me so upset with my sister because she's so selfish, because there's so many people that I know, even friends now, that struggle so hardcore with addiction. and they don't have any support. They don't have a rich family. They don't have somebody that will stand next to them and hold their hair back while they're puking their guts out for 3 days trying to come down. They don't have a parent that, you know, would fly across the country and drag them out by their hair and lock them in a room for a week because they care about them so much while they're puking their brains out, you know? And so it's such a touchy subject with me. And what I don't appreciate as well is, like, most people didn't know, like yourself, but there are many forms of recovery and places that you can go to, but most people think about the faith-based ones, and most people think about the 12 steps. And like you said, like the 12 steps are a tool to help you, but 12 steps don't make you recover. Like, you wanting that and you making those life changes, you know, the 12 steps are there just to help you as a tool. But I think some people, I don't know, but a part of it too, like, there was just so much that made me think that those programs too are difficult for me to understand. Number one, the faith-based. I don't really feel like, I mean, you should be forced religion down your throat in order to be helped, in order to be accepted, in order for somebody to embrace you and like carry you through a really obviously painful time in your life, difficult time in your life. I do have a little bit of issue sometimes with, you know, like people that have gone through programs and then they turn around and they're teaching. You know, I understand rehabilitation, but sometimes I'm like, you know, birds of a feather, girl. You know, everybody, especially if you continually call yourself an addict, whether you're in recovery or not, or what active addict is that what you said? Yeah. Active or not, I feel like, you know, I had to go to AA for almost a year when I got DUI like 20 years ago. And even my personal experience, like, you put a room full of, you know, drunk people in a room to go to some afternoon class on lunch break. People were like smoking cigarettes and talking about partying and like exchanging numbers to like get drugs. And I'm just like, this is so weird that like you're trying to like make us go to this school for like 6 hours today, but during our lunch break, you literally have all these alcoholics and addicts in a room and then just discussing, because some people take it seriously, like myself, and some people didn't give a shit. And I'm just like, that's, I don't know. I think that can be a little messy.
I think that touches on what you referenced earlier, like about the choice. Like, you have to choose to go into recovery. You have to choose not to use and choose to make a better life for yourself.
But I don't think that that's a choice.
You're forced.
And I don't think that that's a choice that a facility or a program or a friend will ever be able to decide. There just has to come a point where like one day you woke up and you're like, after all the decisions you made, there was one day you just woke up and you're like, I can't keep living this life. Like, I need to change.
Exactly.
But that's nothing, you know, and some people do it on one choice. Some people do it on multiple choices, like yourself. Some people, like my sister, never make that choice. But like, where do you go and how long do you stay? You know, like, how long do you, like, I wrote my sister off a few years ago, you know, even before my father passed away. Like, I remember last year, every time we were together, he was like, have you talked to your sister? Have you called her? Which that wasn't even his daughter, you know, that was me and my mother shared. We shared a mother, not a father. And my dad was like very important about like family and keeping them close. And I'm like, no, there comes a point where that person's so toxic to themselves. Like, I can't let that toxicity come to my life. And it's not that I don't care about them or love them, but I have to love myself more than I love that person. And the reality is like, they made their choice, you know, and it's not like there wasn't ample, not even just times, but years, a good 20 years of my family helping, my grandparents running out of money because of her, her kids going without food and no shoes and not getting to school or education or hygiene, years of like, me and my father worrying about like, you know, where she was and things like that. Like, it's just, that's not fair.
Yeah, I think that story plays over for a lot of individuals dealing with, you know, family members or friends who are addicted to something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, you brought up the idea of, you know, we have to get to a point where we make that choice to want to change. You know, we have to have a reason. In the 12-step programs, they call it hitting a rock bottom, which I really don't like that term, because when I got out of my situation, I had been in worse situations before that.
Oh, wow. So you'd already seen what rock bottom had, or
so, yeah,
at some point, yeah.
I prefer the term hit an emotional wall. Mm-hmm. You know, where you can't go on with drugs, it's really hard to go on without the drugs. Mm-hmm. You know, you hit a wall. I don't know really how else to better describe it. You know, I couldn't put up with the lifestyle I was leading. And for me, I needed to know how to survive. Like my survival instincts kicked in. I was like, I need to know how to survive. I need to know how to be able to pay my own way. I need I don't want anybody paying my way for me anymore. I want to be able to take care of my own rent, and not have to rely on somebody else. So then I was like, the only way I can do that is if I get clean.
Yeah.
So my motivation was to get away from abusive acts.
Remove yourself from that scene.
Remove myself from that scene. And that motivation kept me around for a long time. And then it became more of a lifestyle, to be in recovery. There's 5 stages of change in recovery. There is pre-contemplation, where you don't really think there's a problem. Contemplation, where it's pointed out that maybe there is a problem, and you start contemplating whether or not there is one. There is taking steps phase, where you start taking steps towards recovery. There is the recovery. Let me see one. There's taking steps, and then there's the recovery phase, where it's becoming more of a lifestyle. And then there is recovered. I think I'm getting this right. It's been a long time since but it's a process, and at any time you can fall out of that process and come back in. Some people stay in that contemplation phase for a long time before they start really taking the steps that they need to be able to recover.
I guess when you were talking about your sister and making sure you don't know what's going on and you're not involved, is that what people would refer to as tough love for that individual, where you're
I don't know if I really did tough love ever, as much as I just kind of put communication over the past couple of years, just not. And yeah. I know that there was a time, even during 10 years ago, when she was going through so much and stuff, that honestly, we had talked about it before too, about how I remember her saying that she came to a point where I just feel like such a garbage person, like a throwaway person, I remember is what she said, and that it doesn't matter if I am alive or not, and no matter where I go from now, this whole huge chunk of my past will always be there, and I will ever always feel tied to that, and I was always trying to let her know that you don't have to be tied to your past, you don't have to listen to those words, you're an addict, you'll always be an addict, blah blah blah. I get that program and I get how they're doing it, and if that works for them, but to me, I don't think that you have to live in that skin ever. And I feel one day you come and you said, fuck you, I'm not an addict, I'll never be an addict, this is who I am. You don't need to listen to people being I don't care where you go and what you do, you will always be an addict, even if you're not drinking, you're just not active, but you're an addict. I'm Kimberly, stop listening to that. You can be whoever you want to be. But what really resonated with me too was I really remember her saying, I'm just a throwaway person. There's some people in life that are meant to do things and be great and be successful and have normal lives, and there are some people that are just throwaway people, and I'm one of those. And I would think no. But then as it progressed, I remember thinking probably in her 4th or 5th time where it was really bad, and she'd been gone for months and turned up and just dealing with the law and dealing with everything and just trying to con more money. There were times I would, I can't believe I'm going to say this and I'm going to say it on camera. It would literally make our family so much easier if you just did that. Because at least our family would be able to move forward and just to see, and I don't really think that we ever talked about it, but it's you don't understand that your addiction doesn't just affect you. It doesn't affect your group of friends you're doing drugs with and the nights you have out. It is affecting every single person in our family. And it is tearing our family apart. And you're not even here to say anything, to see this, to care about it. But this is something every single day you are on the top of everyone's tongue and lips, and everybody is walking on eggshells of what to do. And everybody is working overtime to try to help you and save your life. and you're not even present. And you're affecting so many people's lives. And I remember, you know, family members being upset and crying, and I'm like, this day could be so beautiful and fun, but it's not because of what Kimberly did, or wishing that she was here to share this with her kids that are not here because she can't get her shit together. And I remember, and even still maybe feeling so resentful about how she could be so selfish. And then when she finally, because she was never supposed to have kids, and then she ended up having 4 beautiful children and didn't take care of them. Nothing changed. You know, and I'm like, now you're bringing 4 other lives in here and being not only careless with your current family, but the people that you're supposed to protect and take care of. Like, so maybe it would be better if you just weren't here. Maybe your family would be able to bury you in the ground and move forward and like be and start a healing process that was never able to happen because of the life that they chose. You know, and so like it's this. So these subjects are always very touchy to me. And so it's so interesting because too, like I just 38 days and you said congratulations, thank you for that. And I appreciate everyone that says thank you. But like I just said, you know, I don't like the person that I was acting like a few weeks ago when I was just drinking way too much, so I'm just gonna stop. And I set a goal for 30 days because people feel like they need to have goals in days, but I don't really adhere to a number. I'm just like, I actually just don't feel like being hungover, and I don't feel like continually having sex with toxic people that are in my life and realizing that I'm only doing it because maybe I'm bored or I need like the gratification. But like some of these people are toxic. But you know, and also smoking, like I don't like waking up every day when my mouth like tastes like a homeless person took a bath in my mouth. Like it didn't like that taste, so I quit. So it's not these big things, you know, but then it's always coming back to conversations like this where it's like we grew up in the same household, we seen the like in the same environment, we share DNA, but like how is this person so broken that they can't see that there's so many amazing things around their lives and so many people. And it would make me even more infuriated as I got older and came out and like went to circuit parties and met a bunch of queers and gay boys that were addicted to drugs and looking at their lives where they were, you know, came from adoption or came from the system or and didn't have parents and didn't have a grandmother and didn't have people that love them and support them. And I'm like, how am I able to empathize more with them because they don't have all the stuff that my sister had and she still chooses. And I was like, there's like a gauge where like they're both actually choosing to kind of do this, or like, you know, their mental capacity is like limiting them to like where they need to go. But this person has so much more physical and financial support than this person, but this person still chooses to reject it all the time.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
That story, you know, does that mirror what you hear or like parallels what you hear in support groups and individuals who are dealing with their addiction and, you know, moving through the steps of recovery?
Yeah, actually, you know. So like I said before, I'm a drug and alcohol counselor. So one of the things that I touch on is family relationships. And a lot of times by the time they get to me, like they've completely, like their family doesn't want anything to do with them. Yeah, like my family didn't, like after I came back to Kansas City and kept relapsing, my family didn't want anything to do with me. You know, until I got to a place where I was.
What do you think about that? Like, what were your thoughts when you realized your family didn't want a part of what you were? Did you think that, oh, they really just don't care about me, or did you think like what was your thought process? Like, fuck them, like.
Some of it was kind of fuck them, to be honest with you. You know, I wasn't getting clean because of my family. You know, I called my family because I didn't know anywhere else to turn. You know, and they were very disappointed that I didn't stay at that rehab that they worked really hard to get me into. You know, but when I did start showing signs of improvement, you know, like staying clean for a few weeks, you know, which was something that I really had done for a long time. You know, or staying clean for 30 days. You know, they started having a little bit more faith in me. This 30 days that I got this go around is the first 30 days that I've had this housing. So that's from drinking heavy drugs, pot, anything, poppers.
Yeah, that all counts.
So yeah, this 30 days was the first 30 days that I've ever gotten since I started, and my family became more supportive the more I stayed clean, and it actually kind of hurt whenever I would talk to my mom, and she would ask me, "Are you still living at the recovery house? Are you still staying clean?" Like that really tugged at my heartstrings a lot. Because I started realizing how much my addiction affected my family. Even though I cut them out of my life, it still affected my family. People still asked about me and how I was doing, and people still wanted to get in touch with me, but had no idea how. Nobody knew how to reach out to me. So where I didn't see the pain until I got into recovery. Yeah, I guess I didn't see the pain until I got into recovery.
Is that part of your recovery too? Is like dealing with that pain and sort of like maybe sort of like a remorse for what happened? Is that it makes your I'm sorry a little bit more in depth than just like you were saying. Instead of starting right away with your recovery as apologizing to everybody, you sort of build a little bit more into it.
Yeah, I wanted to be able to show, like, by the time I got to my what they call it, the ninth step, where you make your amends to people.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I got to that point, I wanted to be able to show that I'm not living in those behaviors that caused me to have a reason to make that amends.
Yeah.
I wanted to show to my exes that I'm not somebody that would sleep around on them, or that wouldn't sleep around on my future partners. I wanted to show my family that I can stay in contact with them. I wanted to show my friends that I don't have to drink to be able to socialize with you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to change those behaviors. I didn't want to, addiction tends to be a very self-centered disease. You think about yourself, you think about what you're like, regardless of what substance it is. You think about getting what you're going to get, when you're going to get it, how you're going to get it, how you're going to use it. You think about yourself a lot. How am I going to survive the next day? How am I going to get my next fix the next day? Mm-hmm. So you tend to not think about how it's going to affect the people around you.
Yeah.
Even the people that are in addiction with you, you don't think about how your actions are going to affect them. I ran into that a lot with relationships. It was on both ends. But,
so like an endless cycle.
It's an endless cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, once you get trapped in that circle, it's really hard to break yourself out of that circle.
I feel like I do believe a little bit that is why my sister has not chosen to ever really come clean and be clean, because I think that she feel like she may have felt that no matter what I do now, it's been so long and so much time that nobody will ever trust me, or nobody will ever see me as somebody that is in recovery or moving towards those things, because I've messed up so much, and every time I do think about her, I do get a little angry still. And honestly, if she were to message me and say that she was clean and doing great, I think that I'd be like, okay, cool. I definitely don't think that I would want to foster a relationship, but also that's exactly like the mentality that she was expecting. So it's like, where does someone like myself lie in that? I definitely don't want to be a part of that cycle. But obviously too, I'm a human, and just because you lived in a crack house and did whatever you had to do to get your fix, your life choices still affected a lot of things in my life, and a lot of them were negative. So how do I protect myself but still, I guess, hear where you're at and want to support, but also remembering having supported so much and just having been let down so many times.
Yeah.
And lied to.
There's
and it sucks because that's too, talking to her, I remember her saying, I'm just a throwaway person. And I don't believe that anyone's a throwaway person. And if there's one thing that I have learned from Jeff Edmondson and working with important from Henry Ramirez is that everybody deserves a second chance.
Yeah.
And sometimes third, and sometimes fourth.
Yeah.
And sometimes fifth. And my dad would always say when I would get upset and he would bring up Kimberly, and he's like, I was like, whatever, like it's just too late. Like I don't want to do this anymore. And my dad's like, it's never too late until they're gone.
There's a book I read a couple years ago called about forgiveness, and it's written by Desmond Tutu, and he talks about when you forgive someone, it's not about them accepting that forgiveness. It's about you accepting that you're forgiving that person and that you're closing the door on that past relationship, never to open it again, and you're opening a new door as you step forward. So like that past that she may have anchored herself to isn't part of the past that you have going forward with that person. So that when you were talking about like, how do I respond to, someone coming to me and saying in forgiveness, I'm sorry for what I've done. It's like, well, they've closed that door on their past and they're asking you to do the same.
But it's so difficult when somebody wrongs you or hurts your feelings or doesn't. It's so much different than what an addict does, because an addict usually doesn't just close that door and move forward. That door reopens and closes multiple times.
Yeah, it's like a revolving door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes with some people.
And then, like I said, in the 12-step program, that's why that particular step is so far into the program. Like I took my time with the steps, so I didn't get to that step for probably about 2 years. Just because of the way that my sponsor and I work the steps. And by the time I got there, I was able to understand the idea that you were talking about with you're closing the door on that, you're getting closure, and then you're starting this relationship new, however it is that they decide to start this relationship. And it's not always going to be good.
Yeah.
When I first moved up here, I lived with an aunt of mine, and so I came out to Kansas City, and I burned that bridge really bad. So when I got to the point where I was going to make amends to her, she didn't want anything to do with me.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and that's reality.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's reality. Not everybody that you apologize to is going to understand that you're trying to make something right. Or they might understand and just still want nothing to do with you.
There are consequences for actions.
Yeah, there are consequences for actions.
So for our viewers out there who are watching, who maybe have a family member, or they may be themselves or a friend who is addicted to a substance, like how would they find resources? Like how would they find a support group? Because those things aren't advertised. I mean, you don't see commercials, I don't think.
Correct.
Well, Passages is.
That's true. Yeah.
Everybody can go to rehab in Malibu.
Oh.
It's
a resort.
12-step programs are really big about anonymity.
Yeah.
And keeping everybody anonymous and keeping the programs anonymous. We don't have spokespersons for the 12-step programs, for like each individual 12-step programs. That's why I'm kind of trying to keep it as general as possible.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be perceived as speaking for a 12-step program. But there are programs out there for family members that have family or friends that are struggling with addiction. There's a couple 12-step ones. There are like Al-Anon and Nar-Anon. Al-Anon is for alcoholic family members. It was started by the wife of Bill W., who started AA.
Okay.
Mainly for the wives, but they have Al-Anon, they have Alateen. So that's Alcoholics Anonymous's branch off of it. Nar-Anon is Narcotics Anonymous's branch off of it.
And those are links for family members who are dealing with somebody who is in a recovery program, or that wants to be in a recovery program, or they should be,
or that are just dealing with active addiction.
Okay. Kind of like PFLAG is for parents of like gays and lesbians. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And they provide a lot of support. They have some great literature.
We're going over on time, so we need to
I know.
kind of wrap this up a little bit.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have to come and get too. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course there are family services that a lot of counseling agencies work with, or that they provide. Some recovery houses, like if you get into, say, Welcome House has a family services program that you can get into.
Okay.
You know, and it mainly starts with the person in recovery, and then they bring the family in. You know, so there's a lot of different options out there.
Yeah.
You know, I suggest getting with, like if you have a counselor or behavioral health specialist that you see, you know, getting some resources from one of them, because they might be able to provide more than just, say, Al-Anon or Al-Anon or Nar-Anon.
Yeah. So getting it from a trusted source, somebody that isn't tied to, I don't know, like a friend of a friend or something like that. Like this is from a individual that isn't representing a group or something like that. You said like your counselor may be the person to ask, or reaching out to a local clinic or something like that, or yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank Casey for joining us today and sharing his story and talking about something that is really hard and prevalent in our community as far as addiction goes. And I want to thank Ace for sharing as well. It's always hard sharing personal stories, especially ones that are, you know, things we're still living with and going through. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, congratulations on your recovery. I wish the best for you, and yeah, thank you so much for coming. Also, look for in the comments below for some tools and resources to help with anybody or anyone that needs information on seeking recovery.
Yeah, we'll post a resource guide and then a list of shelters or rehab facilities that may be available to an individual here in at least our KC metro area for those who are watching. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to chime in on the box below. We're monitoring those not just when we're live, but all the time. So we look forward to engaging with y'all more. And next week we're going to be on, it's our Halloween episode.
Oh my goodness, I haven't went and got my costume yet. I'm so excited. I might do that today.
Yeah, I picked out my wig, so that's super fun.
Oh, you do that. Yeah.
We're going to have a celebrity guest. We're going to do some psychic readings. We're going to have fun with Halloween this year, as masked as we can be. In the meantime, everybody stay safe and protect yourself and others.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.